Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to the Campervan Campout Hub. We are delighted to have the roaming Radfords with us again. Last night, apparently, Steve is a bit bleary-headed this morning. He was so drunk he climbed into the wrong bed, which meant climbing 6 rungs on a ladder, despite normally he'd be sleeping in the rear lounge. Is that true?
Yeah, well, no, George is sleeping where we normally are. We normally look down the bed.
Excuses.
You wanted
Anyway,
to snuggle with the 12-year-old, didn't you?
with a headache, we've got Steve, and we've got Lindsay, and we've got George Radford. Please give them a big round of applause. The roaming Radfords.
Thank you, Matt.
To make it absolutely clear, I don't have a headache because I didn't drink yesterday. Because I'm smug and superior. I just had yoga at 10 o'clock this morning, so that wasn't a good idea.
Right, did anyone join
Anyway.
Lindsay on her yoga this morning? Was anyone there?
Trying to say,
Okay.
yay!
Well, the rest of you can be there at 10 o'clock tomorrow morning, okay, if you missed out.
It's very gentle.
Over
It's
at
more
the
a
wellness.
stretch and giggle than a pretzel squeeze, I promise.
Now, like the last presentation I put together, the last lot of slides I put together earlier today, Lindsay hasn't seen this one either.
It'll
So
be fine.
I'm going to completely wing it, eh?
Yep, absolutely.
So, those of you who don't know us, we are Steve and Lindsay and George
Yes.
of the Roaming Radfords. We have a YouTube channel and we share our travels. But right here, I'm going to run you through some of the vehicles that we've had. That's an 89 Pelotti, our very first one.
Steve came home from work one lunchtime and said, I've had a brilliant idea. We need a motorhome. And he came home with that at that lunch. He came home and said, here we are. This is what we need. This is what we're going to do.
And we've had a series of motorhomes, Caravan and what have you through the years. And there's some of them there. There was an A-Class we had. That was in Croatia, that was taken. 649 Kentucky. And we've even gone over to America and rented RVs as well.
That's how much we love motorhoming.
We
and
love
RVing.
motorhoming
Yeah.
and love sharing our travels with you.
Yeah.
So that is our current motorhome. It's a Kentucky 874, 9 metre long, and we love it.
Mm-hmm.
Do you like it, George? Yeah? You nicked our bed last night. Normally the boys sleep at the back, our big boys, Eddie and Harry. Normally we sleep on the drop-down bed and George sleeps underneath us. Well, right now we're in the back and George is on our drop-down bed, aren't you?
I've nicked it.
Yes.
It's a big old bed that he's got. Yeah.
And we spend 3 months of our lives in that van, travelling. And this one I want to share with you. We've been down the Adriatic probably the most. 4 or 5 times we've been down to the Adriatic. And Croatia's been one of our favourites. I want to tell you about this time that we went in 2022, 2 years ago that we went down there. And we covered all these countries on the way down as well. And that started, look, my text is wrapped round again, goodness me. That started at the Camp Creator at Stratford-upon-Avon, when we left that. Mm-hmm. We held a Camp Creator meet there with a load of YouTubers and lots of other people in the field. Has anyone been to the Stratford meets? Okay, of course you have, Ricky. Fantastic, yes.
And Sharon in the corner.
So that's what kicked it off. We went there and then we hit the road. And we jumped on the tunnel. We always jump on the tunnel. Apart from this time we came back from Easter.
Yeah.
And our first stop in France at Reims, wasn't it? Circuit de Reims, where you can pull up by the side of the road and literally stop and have lunch and climb in the buildings. And I think George is up the top there.
It's really cool because they're all being restored. I had no idea what on earth or why this was significant. I'm not into motorsport, but Steve explained it in quite a lot of detail to me. And Reims is an old circuit in France. They did F1 there?
I believe it did, many, many years ago.
Many years ago.
A very old one. But it's great. It's now part of the road. You can just pull up and have a bit of lunch. So on the way down, I wanted to stop there, get a bit of lunch, and we carried on. And we jumped into an air by a river, free air. And it was an air that actually it was okay to get, because normally you can't get your tables and chairs out at an air.
Yeah.
But everyone was. It was a done thing. So lovely to stop on the way down. And then this one I'd heard about. You guys may have seen, has anyone seen these videos from Switzerland when we did some river jumping? Ricky would have seen them. You'd have seen them. So there is a river there. What's the river called, do you know?
It's the city's Bern.
Yeah.
And up in the mountains, you could go up to the top of the mountains. There's loads of things to do at the top, including like a little theme park. Well, no, park area rather than a theme park. A lovely looking restaurant, far too expensive because it was Switzerland. So we had a look through the window and looked at the people who were sat outside. And their dinner looked really nice, but we had 3 kids with us, so we don't spend a lot of money when it's all 5 of us. But the campsite that we stayed at is right on the edge of the river, and it's a really fast-flowing river. It's beautiful. So the big kids, well, Eddie in particular, was jumping off the bridge, and then the river would take you in its own current down towards the city. You get out and come back. But the great thing about this is there are generations of people who live in Bern who are doing the same thing. My favourite memory is the women who must have been in their 80s. They'd come walking up, take their flip-flops off, put them in their swimming suit, get in the river and float back down, and they spent hours doing this. We'd see them every half hour or so as they came round.
So we love Switzerland. Whilst we're there, we did some mountain drives on the way down. Now, we're trying to get down to the Adriatic, but we're making a holiday of it along the way. So we did, I think, 3 mountain drives on that day, didn't we?
Yes.
And look at that.
Grimsel.
Lunch with a view. That was amazing. I had to get the drone up to get some great shots of that there. And then into San Marino. Now, we're working our way down Italy right now, which was one of your favourite stops, San Marino, wasn't it?
I think this is one of my favourite stops ever. It's one of the smallest independent countries in the whole world. And it's a medieval city up on top of the mountain. And there are airs halfway down the mountain by the gondolas where you get on and it takes you up to the top. And we parked there for free.
Right.
It was completely free to park there. We had the evening up, and we were so lucky because there was a medieval festival going on as well. So we arrived, and I thought I'd put a bit of mascara on, maybe something nice. And there were these women in their big, beautiful dresses, and medieval pipers and drummers as well. Gorgeous.
Marching through the streets. It was awesome, wasn't it, being amongst that?
Purely by accident. We'd not timed it.
So there we are now, look, from San Marino, we're heading further south. And I found us a gem. This is something really special. Do you remember this pool, George? This one here, it's a small air, and it's got that amazing swimming pool with a couple of little slides on it. Do you remember that, George?
I remember going on that little white island thing in the middle and jumping off of it.
And there's our motorhome park behind it there in the trees. So that was a lovely, lovely stop. Again, we're on our way down. Next stop was Pompeii.
Pompeii's amazing. But there's no shade. So if you go there in the end of July and the middle of August, it is going to burn you to a crisp. There's nowhere to get away from the heat. It was so hot. Beautiful and fantastic. And one of my big regrets is that we didn't do a free walking tour, or we didn't do a tour around there. So we were going around and using Google Maps because it had little reference points that you could read about, but it was just too hot. In the end, we ended up kind of beating it back to the campsite and cooling off in the shade.
We did it though, and there's campsites. You can literally park 2 minutes away from where it's all happening, and there's several campsites at Pompeii. Definitely worth a visit, not in July and August if you can help it though.
No.
Okay, then we're kicking it up now. Then I think we've been on the road a week now.
Yes.
And then we jump on a ferry to Albania. Now previously we've done a ferry from Brindisi to Igoumenitsa in Greece, and I certainly recommend that one. But we didn't want to go down as far this time, so we got the ferry from Brindisi to Vlore.
Yes, Vlore.
Vlore.
In Albania. And Albania was an absolute revelation. A lot of people had warned us about going to Albania. It's full of dodgy people, and it's not nice. But these are not people who have been to Albania.
Right.
These are not people who have their own opinion based on their own experiences. They're very quick to warn you not to go, and we loved it, didn't we?
We did, and it's the second visit to Albania we've done. We had people say, "Oh, you shouldn't go to Albania," and I said, "Have you been to Albania?" And they said, "No."
No.
So why? Obviously, had some bad experience with some Albanians, but all the nice ones are left there. And one of the first stops we did is camping on the beach.
Yeah.
That was beautiful. That was, and the restaurant was amazing there. And look at that. Look how far from the beach we're camped. And I think it was €12 a night.
I was going to say the other great thing about Albania is it's really cheap. We used to go to Croatia when it was cheap, and it's not cheap anymore.
It's not anymore. Croatia's been our favourite place, and Albania's our new Croatia. So if you get a chance, we recommend Albania. We should have spent more time in Albania, but I was just keen to get back to Croatia, which is kind of 4 times the price in Albania, at least.
Yeah.
So yeah, €12 a night. And what do we pay? €200 a night for a campsite?
We'll get that, I'm sure. Yeah.
So Albania, there you go. There's George jumping in. Remember that pool, George?
Yep, gorgeous pool. And a really beautiful campsite as well. That was by Lake Bled. Now, we'd intended to go to a campsite that was right on the side of Lake Bled, so you can swim in Lake Bled. But I bumped into a Dutch lady. Always speak to the Dutch ladies. They know everything. At the campsite before, and she said, don't go there. Try this campsite instead. And when you go into the restaurant, it felt like Alice in Wonderland. It was all within the vines, and it was very pretty and beautiful.
It was beautiful.
And it was cheaper as well.
It was a beautiful campsite. That was such a fine... And that's the thing, along our trips, we meet people along the way and they evolve. We never book anything.
No.
We just wing it, and we'll bump into someone like that Lindsay met, and we'll go, try that one, right, let's go and try that one, and we're glad we did. And we'd like to try different campsites. Don't like to go back to the same ones all the time, do we?
Not too often.
No. And then there's city breaks. That is my R's right round on that again. At Kotor and Dubrovnik. Has anyone actually been to Kotor? Do anyone know Kotor? Okay, so you'll know what I mean. It's something special, Kotor.
The first time we ever went there, I didn't know what to expect. I'd not looked at it. I'd not really paid any attention to the plan. And Steve had spoken to a friend who said, you've got to go to Kotor.
Absolutely.
And there's a little peninsula that sticks out into the sea, and you go one way around it. We went the wrong way around it. So we were headlong to the buses, weren't we, as we came through. But that felt like 1950s LA glamour. It felt spectacular. But Kotor itself is actually a medieval city that goes up onto the mountain, and it's a walled city. Really, really beautiful city.
I remember the first time we went, you said it was like Venice, but without the water.
Yes, it's from the Venetian era, so very much built by the Venetians, and it feels like that as well.
And Dubrovnik as well. We'd actually been past Dubrovnik a few times, and there's nowhere to park your motorhome in Dubrovnik. And this time, we splashed out on the expensive campsite and went and did Dubrovnik this time. And anyone who knows where that photo was taken, anyone recognise where that photo was taken in Dubrovnik?
Have you watched Game of Thrones? No, we'd not either.
But that's the famous steps.
The steps of shame. Shame, shame.
So we're in Croatia now.
Yes.
So we've come up and we're in Croatia. Now this site was, it's wrapped my text around again. Got to get that fixed. Oh. So this one here was an interesting one. This is us not booking campsites. We're just winging it. We turned up at a couple. We couldn't get on. Yeah. Then I turned up at this one and I said, have you got a pitch for 1 or 2 nights? And he said, I've got a pitch for 1 night you can have.
Yeah.
And it was right on the seafront like that. Absolutely. Camp Szeged. It felt very...
It felt
Soviet.
very Eastern Bloc.
It did, didn't it?
Yes, it felt like it had come from a different era entirely, and maybe it was a little bit utilitarian, a bit cement, like some of the buildings were made from cement. However, when you got down to the front, we were so close to the sea, and the sea, the Adriatic Sea, is so crystal clear and warm and beautiful that the concrete building up the road didn't bother me at all.
That's the thing. You see George up there, he's snorkeling. He's got his snorkel on there. In Croatia, we've only ever found 1 sandy beach. They're mainly pebbly beaches in Croatia. And to start off with, we were disappointed. Then we saw the benefits of it. The waters are really crystal clear, aren't they, for snorkeling?
And no sand in your knickers.
And no sandy knickers. And then you just get the shoes. You get some beach shoes, and it's much easier to walk on, isn't it?
Yeah.
So yes, we was disappointed to start off with, but we see the benefits of having stony ones. Lunch and a swim. We started this now, I think 5 times. I think we've been in total.
Yeah.
And there's this spot we found one time, right there. It was an old port, and we just pulled off the road and found it. Now every time we go past there, it's a tradition that we pull in and have lunch and have a swim.
It's an old ferry port, because the only way to get between the islands used to be by boats. Now they're building more bridges, but it used to be by boat, so you drive on and off, and every so often you come across a really beautiful flat area that you can get on and have a dive off the pier. You've had a good jump off that one, haven't you?
A few years in the trot.
Yeah.
So that's a beautiful one. Love that spot. And it's tradition now, isn't it?
Yep. What's it remind you of? What's your favourite thing about there?
I remember Harry found, I can't remember what it was, but he found like a little toy.
He did, yes.
In the waters.
It was a little Minecraft toy.
It was.
It was well sought after as well at the time. That's 5 or 6 years
ago. So lunch and a swim.
Yep.
What was the island we're getting on today? Do you remember?
Is it?
Prague.
Yes,
The island of Prague. That's it. So island hopping is a thing in Croatia. It's the Dalmatian coast. There's hundreds of little islands, and you could literally just drive up, queue on, and get on a ferry.
Yeah, there's usually a hut towards the front, and this is the longest queue we've ever seen, and that was 2 years ago. Normally, you just drive to the front of the queue, pay for your ticket when you're there.
And there's ferries coming all the time.
And the ferries are big, so don't worry if you're in a big motorhome or whatever vehicle you're in. If you can't get on that one, they'll just put you on the next one as ahead of the queue.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
And this photo I keep showing, there's a guy there that is actually having a wee. You see that? And you notice it on the big screen. He hasn't got the toilet in his motorhome, look. So that's getting on to Office with a... Go on, work for me. Office with a view. This
now,
one
we said
here.
earlier that we don't like going back to the same place too often at all. This is a campsite we've been to 3 or 4 times now.
Yeah. At least 3 times.
At least 3 times.
And it's actually been taken over by another company now, hasn't it?
Yeah.
But this here, they've got different pitches at this campsite, but this is their most premium pitch. This one here, when they turned up, and there was a guy in front of me that said, I'm looking for somewhere for 3 nights, and she said, well, I got somewhere for 1 night, and he said, oh, I don't want that, and he stormed off.
Yeah.
British guy. And I said, oh, I'll take that, love. And she said, let me tell you how much it is first. She said, how many of you are there? She said, it's €200 per night for that pitch there.
250.
I think it was 200. I think we got it wrong last time.
250. Okay. All right.
It was really, really
I'll
expensive.
wrestle about that later.
So I don't normally pay it, but I turned to Lindsay and said, just think of the title and thumbnail. The world's most expensive campsite, that video is called.
And it's very beautiful. We were right on the water's edge. There were little areas that you could go down to and sunbathe on the areas below. There were sun loungers. There was also a barbecue. But no one came and cooked for us, and no one came and cleaned up for us either.
Right.
So it was just somewhere to park. Which is why we like to mix it up. That's why we like free
stops, and I don't mind splashing out now and again. I know that campsite, that pitch is a fraction of the cost not during that very, very high season.
Yeah.
So you can stay on this campsite much, much cheaper.
Well,
You
go
really
back,
can.
go back.
What are we saying
back.
going back for, Jules? What do you remember?
Right, okay, I remember.
Yeah.
You see on the big picture up there, there's like a...
Inflatable.
Yeah, an inflatable like water course. I remember going on there with the boys and just spending the whole day.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Yes.
I guess that's a water-based version of what's outside.
Yes.
Yeah.
Not that thing outside's massive, though. You've been on that all day, haven't you, George?
I have.
You've been
was
sleeping
down
well
now.
tonight.
Yeah.
Sleeping well tonight. Then they have them inflatables all the way down Croatia. Croatia's campsites. Has anyone camped in Croatia's campsites? Okay.
Yeah.
It still is our favourite country. The campsites are the best campsites we've ever come across. Really are.
Yeah.
They've got some of them,
Pristine.
and you've got some small ones we found that's only got 5 or 10 pitches, and then you've got some that have got 3,000 pitches and 2 water parks, and it's incredible. And we like to have the mix. So, and especially Istria, which is what I call the upside-down triangle at the top left of Croatia. It's the easiest, but it's the closest one to drive to. You'll think it's in Germany because it's full of Germans, but
The really interesting thing about it is it's very different to UK campsites. In the UK, we're very regimented. You have to line up to your pin, and they're all pristine, and you have to be in the right, pointing the right way. In Croatia, they'll have some of those pitches, but they'll also have like a free-for-all area where you can just go and park and find yourself and make yourself a pitch. So it's very rare that any of the campsites are full, because you can
always find
tend
somewhere.
to find somewhere. It might not be perfect, it might not be exactly what you're after, but the campsites are amazing.
And often what we'll do with the big ones is they say, well, just go and find a pitch, and then plonk somebody, leave one of the kids there,
Yes.
and then come back and tell us where you're going. And you don't have to tell them when you're leaving as well. Just stay as long as you want, and then pay when you're leaving.
Yeah.
Honestly, it's done way different than the UK. Much, much better way of doing it.
Yeah, they tend to hang on to the passports.
Yeah.
So you hand them in and then collect them as you leave.
So working on the road, when we go away for the summer holidays, for the 6 weeks that we do every year, I generally make 22 to 24 videos in that 6 weeks. So there's a lot of time making the videos and working on the road. Lindsay does the accounts, does the bookkeeping, gets back to work.
Yeah, we still own a business that we've owned for 20 years now. So I'm still involved, not very often, not very much. I do a couple of hours a week, maybe, if I have to.
Right, and we do videos and we do sponsors, which this one was here. And that helps cover the cost of the holidays as well.
Oh, I'm looking a bit manic there.
Now, this is one of the small campsites in Croatia. This was our favourite one that was on about. This actually was 5 pitches, and they've made it now, I think, into 12, 15 pitches. But look at that. I couldn't get any closer to the pool, could I?
And the first time we went here, we made friends with the owner.
Right.
So we're friends on Facebook. We don't really speak a lot of each other's language, but we made friends, we had a beer, and we were welcome back, even though the season had pretty much ended for them, hadn't it?
Can anyone spot George in this picture?
I have a lot of memories of this campsite, and every time we go to Croatia, I'm always begging,
To go to here.
to go there.
It's our favourite one, isn't it?
Yeah.
Although it's really hard. We always compare. I don't know if you guys do that when you're on holiday. You're comparing the campsite. Was this one better than that one? What's your favourite campsite? So we're always doing that, and we have new favourites all the time. It's our favourite small campsite in Croatia.
But generally, I think the smaller campsites, the small friendly campsites, tend to happen to be our favourites.
Yeah.
Anyway, rather than the massive campsites. Oh, they're nice as
They
well.
like a blowout, though, with a few water parks, and then go and have some quiet ones, don't we?
Yeah.
Yes. And then Slovenia, Camping Menina, another one we've been to a couple of times.
What a beautiful country.
Right.
Although we've edged away from the Adriatic a little bit, but you can't go to that area and not go to
Well, this is
Slovenia.
our Adriatic trip. I'm just getting down there, and this is now coming back a little here. But when you look for a campsite, and I always recommend people do this, if you look for a campsite, there's so many campsites out there to choose. Look for a campsite with something. So we look for a campsite with a theme park. We look for a campsite with a swimming pool. This one here has got a campsite with, what do you call this, these rope swings and this...
Aerial adventure.
Aerial adventures.
Yes.
And then it's got lakes to swim in.
And the owner, the owner makes his own cider, and is very happy to tell you about the local wines as well. He got us quite drunk.
So
one
he
night,
invited us
didn't
for a wine tasting, didn't he?
Yeah.
And then, get this, I threw Lindsay the GoPro and it came off and it fell in the lake, okay?
Yeah.
One of the GoPros. And when I told him about it, he stripped down to his pants, got in and started swimming and trying to find it for us. I'm like, you're not going to find it. We tried. And he didn't find it. So there is a GoPro in there. If you guys go and you find it, you're welcome. I just want the videos off of it.
At some point, they might find it. That would be interesting.
But that's what the owner was like. Yeah, he just stripped
Yeah.
down his boxers, just jumped in.
Yeah.
Incredible. But didn't find it.
Wonderful.
And we're on our way back now. Austria, the Grossglockner. Anyone driven the Grossglockner? Okay, that's my favourite alpine road to drive, and I highly recommend you check that one out. It's not a free one, though. You've got to pay to drive up there. And we like to sleep up there as well, which we've done a few times. Although this time, they weren't allowing up there, although since we bumped into someone and said, no, they are allowing it again. So I don't know. That's right at the top on another time that we went, in another motorhome on the top right. And this is the time we went this time, and we slept just down from the top next to this little church there.
Equally beautiful, though.
Equally beautiful. We're on our way back now, still, from our Adriatic Adventures. And this one here is absolutely amazing, what we got here.
Yep, we were in Germany, and
So-
the area...
Well, that's the first one is different, isn't it? These two
Yeah.
here. This
Campervan.
is showing some of the water parks and the things we're different that we find. So this one here, if I'm not mistaken, is Therma-Erding.
Erding,
Okay.
yes.
Which-
the largest thermal spa, I won't say in Europe, but I can't be sure of that.
It's something
anymore.
special.
Yes.
It has the largest indoor slide ever in the world.
I think it does, one of the slides, right.
Yeah.
There
And the
you
tropical
go.
islands that we went to last year was the
Berlin.
biggest indoor water park, but you preferred Therma-Erding. All the boys preferred this one, which is
Yeah.
near Munich, this one is. And again, there's an air there, and we stayed there, and that was fabulous. Now, this one here was a bit different.
The mountain there is actually made out of quartz. There's a quartz quarry just the other side of it, and that sand on the mountain was all the excess quartz dust and sand, that rather than just put it into landfill or something, they created a mountain and they do all sorts of sports on it. You can ski and you can snow a quartz board down. I don't know if that's the right word or not. But it was fantastic. It was interesting we got the cable car up because it's not easy walking on a quartz mountain. It's not easy at all. So we got the cable car up.
And down.
And down, yeah. I was going to fall if I went down.
But this is an example of finding a campsite with something different. So this is a campsite with a bit of a water park and that there. And it was like 32 euros a night. So such good value. Yeah. And they were so friendly. And there was just very strong German speaking. Nobody spoke English. But everyone was showing such an interest in my motorhome. Wanted to come over and speak German to me about the motorhome.
It was in the heart of Bavaria. And they had, do you remember Heidi High? And the speakers and the bing bong bing and then the Heidi High campers, they had that kind of sound system still, didn't they? Go on, George, sorry.
One memory that I have of this campsite in particular is it was the first time that I was ever I went to the pool and I left the boys at the pool, I think, and then I went back to the van and the parents weren't there anymore. So I had to actually break in.
Yeah, don't tell everyone how you did that.
And he keeps breaking into the campervan through the garage, don't you, George?
He's got a secret way in. we could tell you, but then we'd have to kill you, so I'm sorry.
So again, on our way back, we wanted to stop off at Caravan Salon in Düsseldorf, which we're going to do again this year, we hope. And if anyone been to Caravan Salon Düsseldorf, most of you have been to the NEC, though, right?
Yeah.
Okay, think of the NEC, but like 5 times bigger.
Yes.
And you need 3 days there, and it is an amazing one. So we're hopefully going to do a few days this year back at Caravan Salon. But this is the route we did on that 2022 adventure. I don't like going somewhere and coming back. I like doing a loop, and that was the loop we did. Right there, down Italy, across, and then back up there. So there we go. Thank you very much for listening. If you guys have got any questions, we're happy to answer them for you. Thank you.
Does anybody have any questions?
Well done, yes.
No, thank you.
Thank you, George. Thank you, Lindsay. Thank you, Steve.